Okay, so in this video I want to talk about how to drop an intrigue frame on a cold call or a sales call. I feel like intrigue frames are super romantic and they're super fun, and I never see them anymore in anyone's sales process. So this is what I mean with an intrigue frame. An intrigue frame is a form of pre-suasion. It's what you say before the persuasion happens. You can almost think of it as like a magic spell, or like a story that opens the people up to think in a certain way. And a good intrigue frame is almost like a good conversation starter, like a good board game that you play with friends you haven't seen in a while, and everyone starts to open up. So this is an example for e-commerce. This was from a conversation with a client that I had yesterday that's doing an e-commerce wholesale offer. So I said, in the Prohibition, when they couldn't drink alcohol, a lot of bars and restaurants were afraid that they were going to go out of business because they couldn't drink any alcohol and they couldn't sell alcohol. That was their biggest, highest margin product. So they finally let the accountants and the business people into the restaurant, because at the beginning they didn't want to pay for it. They're like, listen, it's a simple business. We sell food, we sell alcohol. It's really easy. Like, we don't need your help. We have a simple bit. We don't need your accounting, your fancy systems. And in most cases, the restaurants were more profitable before Prohibition than after, because it's so easy to steal in a restaurant without even stealing money. There's free drinks, there's free food, there's a bunch of ways to abuse the system. The guy who started Bar Rescue, John Taffer, the reason he started Bar Rescue, I read his book, he was really into, he loved working at the whiskey where like Guns N' Roses used to play in LA, and it drove him crazy. They were never profitable. They were always packed. They were selling cheap shit, like shots of Jaeger and Jack Daniels. Never made any money. And he's like, what's going on? Like, I know everyone's stealing left and right. So when it's very, very similar to what's going on now with all the tariff uncertainty, all these goods being held at the border, like shipping's taking longer. But if you use this method, like what we do for this market is similar to what like Shopify did, and then conversions went through the roof. But we do the same thing for this specific vertical for B2B. And you actually end up making more money, but a lot of the companies that work with us, the reason they want to work with us is because we're losing these margins because of tariffs and uncertainty. We want to get those margins back. Or maybe they bought extra inventory and they're like, shit, we have all these storage costs. We want to get our margins back to where they were a couple of years ago when ads were cheaper, everything was great. So like a lot of our job is like, hey, we can build those margins back in and then some. And clients that were more maybe hesitant to work with us are now more open, just like in Prohibition. So what this does is it creates an environment where it does a bunch of things. One is it's less personal. It's a story that like, hey, this is normal. This happens to industries. There's things that we can't control. But when you take approaches that have worked for other industries, accounting, just like wholesale works for other, and then you apply the same principles to this industry, you can get results. So it does so many little things, but it's not pushy, that I love it. Another one that I used a lot in when I was doing a B2C offer and I was selling like agency coaching is I was like, listen, my last business, we had a brick and mortar business. We had a ton of costs. We had a ton of expenses. Now you can start a business for a song. And everybody I know who got into the online space, into the crypto world, is doing very well financially, assuming they're at the same level of intelligence and they have to work really hard, obviously. But if they're really smart and they work really hard, they're doing really well. And then in my industry, in hospitality, I knew so many bartenders, business owners, like really, really hardworking people, and you would see them slowly slide from upper middle class to lower class, like blue collar, and it was really tough to watch that, especially in COVID, where it felt like everybody was supposed to fast forward. And this was a frame that I would use to sell a B2C info product. So you can do this in a bunch of different ways, but it's so elegant, it's so fun, that it's really, really fun to build into script. It's really fun for you to do yourself. So play around with it. If you guys need help with, I've been doing a lot of sales because I've been doing so much sales coaching and training lately. We just got a huge win yesterday that I can't announce, but like really, really big, millions of dollars. When I'm able to talk about it, I will. But anyway, have a great day. If you need help with cold email, LinkedIn, sales training, cold calling is kind of what I'm known for. Just reach out. You can DM me or go to one of our websites. Have a great day. I'll talk to you guys tomorrow.